Okay, so in the last episode, I defeated Smog and Ornstein, and I was originally planning to go to DLC now, but I thought, I haven't placed the Lord Vessel, so I could actually still get into the Dark Wraith Covenant and meet Kath, assuming I beat Sif and Four Kings right now. So that's what I'm gonna go and do. Sif isn't particularly all that hard if there's one simple strategy that makes him a lot easier. It's easier to do with certain weapons, like the washing pole is actually one of them. Basically, you get underneath him and attack him, just with a, if you have a weapon that doesn't have good vertical range, you might have to hit him in the legs. With the washing pole, I can probably just do two-handed R1s, and the tip of the blade will probably just hit him in the stomach over my head. So that's all I'm going to really try and do. But you do have to be careful though, because Sif does hit pretty hard. So when you're approaching him, trying to get underneath him, you gotta be careful not to get hit. But a good shield makes it a lot easier. Like, I can't really rely on my shield. I haven't upgraded it that much. Well, actually, I don't know if I've upgraded at all. So the stability's not very good. So if I try to block, he'll probably break my guard. So I'll have to roll through. But yeah, if you have a good shield, you can just jog up with your shield up and you'll be fine. Making it a lot easier. In fact, that's probably one of the easiest ways to make the game much easier if you're new. Just have a good shield with high stability. It simplifies a lot of the problems the game will throw at you. So we're back over here. Use the shortcut to get the Sif. Don't have to bother with the Crest of Artorias. This ladder. Oh god, this ladder. Gives me flashbacks, Metal Gear Solid 3. Now I'm actually timing it for the first time. I wonder how long this takes. Like over 10 seconds? Really? Wow. I didn't know it was actually that bad. Okay, that's actually... I think that was actually 20 seconds. I have to go back and check, but I think it was. It's kind of ridiculous. The only tricky thing about fighting Sif, if like very early on in the game, is that he's obviously not a boss intended to be fought early on. He does have quite a bit of health. So if you don't have a very powerful weapon, fighting him early on can be very tedious because you have to fight him for a very long time without making any mistakes. Other than that, as long as you're consistent, you could theoretically just immediately fight him, assuming you have a weapon that at least does decent damage, like at least get... I don't know, because if you go here immediately, you won't be doing anything to him. But you could always use Lightning Pine Resin or something. Now, I think I might have mentioned it earlier, but an interesting thing about this is Sif will not attack you unless you go to pick up the sword. Because the only reason he's here is to guard Artorias' remains. And yeah, I must have, because the door's already open. You can get the Hornet Ring and just leave without even starting the fight, which is pretty cool. Huh, I must have aggroed him. Maybe I did fight him and die, I don't even remember. Maybe I just wanted to show that. So here you can see I'm actually doing really good damage to him. Yeah, I'm just getting underneath him and swinging. And here I get really lucky, because the way his attacks work, if he's on the debris, it won't hit you, because his attacks are designed to be purely horizontal. So if he's up high like that, it's just going to go over your head. And I'm just laying into him with so much damage. And I believe he can bleed, I'm not sure how much resistance he has to it. Not that it really matters at this point, my god. And there, I don't roll in time, and now I could die. And I jump like an idiot and die. That was actually intended to be a roll. If you go back and check, you can see I start blocking just before the jump. Normally, while you're blocking and running, you can't jump. But there's a slight amount of time where you start blocking while running, you'll still jump when you want to roll, and that's what happened right there, and that's very annoying. And the tricky thing about Sif is that it's you got to be very careful when you heal. He's very good at punishing healing. The best time to heal would probably be when you're underneath him. Just sacrifice some time to attack and just heal instead. That's probably the best way. But because if you try to heal when he's, stalking you from a distance, he can very easily dash in and punish you. And yeah, that is probably my only main gripe as far as the controls go, is the jumping mechanic the fact that it overlaps with running and rolling can be really annoying. Because we already had running and rolling on the same button, which worked fine for the most part, but now having three commands on the same button can be really silly at times when you have to jump while running, but what if you want to roll while running, but then you got to raise your shield to do that, but what if I don't have something that lets me, you have to block while running to do that, but what if I don't have a thing that lets me block, and it's I think jumping doesn't really add enough to the game to make its inclusion necessary. Like, I think, honestly, if they can't figure out a solution for the control issue, it'd be better just to do away with it. Because jumping really isn't that important, to be honest. There's only a few times in the game where you might actually need to jump to get a specific item or do something, and they could very easily design the game where rolling can do that. Rolling already covers most of those situations anyway. I think it would make more sense to just have rolling not only be used for dodging, but also for essentially jumping. That's what we did. It worked in Demon's Souls, and it works in this game, even for the most part, even with jumping in the game. Like, there's actually a lot of times where it's easier to roll to something than it is to jump. Like the shortcut not the shortcut, but the jump from the elevator in the Undead Burg to get to the tutorial again, it's actually easier to just roll instead of jumping. In rolling, you don't need a running start and all that. So yeah, I think if they couldn't figure out a good solution for that, I'd rather them just get rid of jumping altogether. Because the combat, I think, really needs to be pure from an executional standpoint. Because the game isn't really supposed to be about how good you are at, execution, how good you are at pressing buttons. It's supposed to be more about your strategy, knowing the enemy's tendencies, knowing, the best way to go about it. Jumping kind of throws in a wrench into that, because there's a lot of times where you only died because you didn't do what you wanted to do. And I'd rather them keep that out of the Souls series, and I think they have done a good job of that up till now. Like, in Demon's Souls, very rarely does that ever happen. In this game, it happens more just because of jumping. The only other time it really happens, and I think it's actually okay in this sense, is that both games have a I don't think you'd call it a buffer system, but it's kind of like a memory system where if you, like, let's say you get hit and you get knocked down, while you're getting up, if you hit like square to use a healing item, you will use that healing item the moment you get up. It will memorize the button press, and sometimes players will mash like healing while they're getting up, and then they, when they get up, they'll heal and get punished, and they'll be like, oh, I didn't, why did my guy do that? That was like a second ago when I hit that button. Well, it's like the game is basically making you commit to your sequences, which I think is fine. Let's try this again. And there we go, a successful roll. You can see I'm holding up my block to make sure I roll. Basically, I just have to be very careful. Ooh, see, blocking with your weapon actually isn't that bad, and I don't know why he just attacked right there. But yeah, you can see even with a weapon. Oh my god, that wasn't good. Even with an washing pole, which isn't really intended to be used for blocking, it does a decent enough job. And as you can see, I healed while I was under him because it's totally safe there. And I'm rolling into his attacks. For sweeping horizontal attacks like that, it's always better to roll towards them. Because the longer you're... Basically, you want to be in the same position as their hitboxes a short amount of time as possible. If you roll towards it, it's going to pass by you in the opposite direction. So there's going to be a less amount of time where the attack is overlapping your body, basically giving you more leeway with your invincibility frames. If you rolled the other way, depending on the attack speed, you might roll essentially perfect timing, but still be overlapping the attack when your invincibility frames run out. That doesn't actually come up too often in this game, to be honest. That was more of a thing that was important to keep in mind in Demon's Souls. Like with Alan's dash attacks. Like if you rolled backwards on his dash attacks, it very easily could punish you. I leveled my Vitality a little bit. Soul of Sif. So now we're going to be going after the Four Kings. I have a love-hate relationship with the Four Kings. I like the fight because it's always a very fun, intense fight, but I feel it kind of goes against the spirit of the Souls games in that it basically forces you to fight in a very specific way. You have to be very aggressive. You have to be you basically have to be very aggressive and very quick, which for the most part requires a very high damage fighting style, which is what I prefer. But the thing is, you don't have to play that way in most cases in the Souls games. Like, there are many other styles that are very effective. And the great thing about these games is that they usually let you play the game in any way you want. But with Four Kings, they kind of don't. You pretty much have to fight in a very select few manners of ways to beat them. Like, you kind of can't, you really can't play like a defensive style. You're just not going to win. And here I'm trying to change my armor setup because I can't use the Havel Shield. Can't use the Havel's Ring because you need the Covenant of Artorias to fight them. And that's another interesting thing, the fact that you have to handicap yourself just to fight them, that you have to sacrifice a ring slot. I would actually like to see them do more of that, because I feel like, not in a different way though, I'd like to see boss battles where you might have to do that, but then not force you to fight in this very specific manner. Like, I kind of like the idea to get you out of your comfort zone, where maybe you can't just use the most overpowered stuff you have. You might have to use maybe a less optimal strategy, but one that's more suited for the fight. Because with Ring of Favor and Havel's Ring, I'm basically just abusing the fact that I don't have a lot of endurance, but I still can get a decent roll and decent poise and decent defense. I really can't do that right now. Without Havel's Ring, Ring of Favor isn't really going to allow me that much leeway in terms of equip load. So right now my armor and poise is very low, and my vitality isn't that great either. So I'm more of a true glass cannon while I'm fighting them. Like, if I get hit with a non-hilt melee attack, it's probably going to either kill me or bring me very close to death. And if their magic attack hits me, it's going to do huge damage. If I get hit by the grab attack, it's going to do huge damage. Which I guess brings up to our next thing, is that they have the Super Smash Bros. Melee Marth sword hitboxes, in that the closer to the tip they hit you with them, the more damaging it will be. Oh, and I almost died. And that's why when you're dodge rolling some of their arcing horizontal attacks, you have to be very careful. Because there can be times where you're extremely close to them. Like, you're bumping right next to their body, and you might think, oh, I'm so close that, it's not going to do a lot of damage. But if you're in a weird position, like let's say you're behind them, when they finish their swing arc, the tip of their sword might actually reach around and hit you and do insane damage where you weren't expecting to get hit a lot at all. That's why when you are... The first thing you got to learn about fighting these guys is that you actually kind of want to stay in front of them. When you're in front of them, it's very easy to keep yourself in a position where even if you botch the roll, it isn't going to kill you. It might bring you almost to death, but it won't kill you at least. And I screw up there. You want a quick roll when you land to give you more time, but whatever. Not a big deal. So here, I'm going to try and get as close to him as soon as possible, because he will do that, and that is very bad, because that takes more time, and that's more time where more of them will appear. So right now, oh my god, this is not going well. Well, at least I didn't hurt too much because of how close I was to his hilt. And here I'm actually shouldn't be doing that. I'm getting close to rolling into the tip of his blade. But here we go. This is the position I want to be in. And that's because when you're in front of him like that, you can just walk right behind him when he does the overhead swing. Here I sacrifice the health just to keep attacking because the other one is already out and that is really bad. And he's doing the grab attack, which is very hard to dodge. It's best to just run straight back. Rolling through, trying to get as much damage in as I can. I really didn't need the roll there. I was actually fine. I could have just walked like that. That is a very, that's one of the better ways to optimize your damage, is to know when you don't even need to roll, when you can just walk right under him. The second one went much better than the first. And I have enough time to heal and reapply my buff and go right after the third one. And he does exactly what I want him to do. He didn't do the magic or the AoE. And he's being very compliant, doing exactly what I want. Oh, that is beautiful. 2 overhead swings in a row lets me get in a ton of damage, but now he's doing the AoE attack. I should have ran. I actually probably would have been better to block it right there since I had full health. And now he's being a jerk, and now I'm in deep trouble. I might die. But I realize he's almost dead, and I take advantage of that. And now I'm going to purposely take my buff off so I can reapply to guarantee that I have it for the rest of the fight. And now this is looking really good. This is only the 3rd king, and look at how much health he has. And I think we're good to go. Yeah, I do pretty good damage. So I think this is in the bag. Yes, it is. That went very well. They're really not as hard as they first appear once you learn the optimal ways to dodge their physical attacks and quickly punish them so you don't need to roll, you don't need to block. Saves you a lot of time. And there is the Primordial Serpent Cath. Or is it Caith? I don't remember. Ooh, 60,000 souls. Excellent. Now, it's, we're not really sure who upturned the grave in the DLC. A lot of people would assume it's Cath, but Chester, the one that tells you about a serpent doing that, doesn't give a name of the serpent. He just says a toothy serpent. So it's really hard. We really don't know. It might have been Framp for all we know, actually. But we do know is that Caith most likely what's the word I'm looking for? Well, we know for a fact that he started the Dark Wraiths, and that he pretty much started a lot of the problems with the flames and the abyss. If it's true that he started the attack on Oolacile, which is very likely, then right after that he immediately moved on to New Londo, which means he took out basically 2 civilizations. So he's kind of a douche. And why is he doing that? Well, that's the thing. His motivation is the way he frames it is that he's doing it to, I don't know, to help flow the natural current of, I don't know, I guess you'd say evolution. That he's saying that the lords are fighting against nature and that the darkness is where things are supposed to go, and that he's just trying to, go along with that. But I don't really buy that. I think he has more selfish motivations, because the way I see it is, not many things can survive in the Abyss, especially without some sort of covenant with the Abyss. The only ones we really know of are the serpents. So it would be in their best interest for the Abyss to overcome things, because that would give them more power. And they've never really had that. We know that they're primordial, so they were around since the beginning, but it seems like the dragons also were. And we're told that the serpents are imperfect dragons. So it's very possible that right from the beginning, they were basically, under the rule of the dragons in the fact that they were inferior. So they've always been around, but they've never really been able to, they've always kind of been an afterthought. First the dragons were in power, then the lords were, and they've just kind of been in the sidelines. So it could be a way for them to finally basically be running the show. And here I'm trying to get the armor I want again. Kind of annoying thing, to be honest, about the whole Covenant of Artorias thing. You have to constantly... Actually, right here, I think I'm trying to maximize, see what the most I can actually wear is. And now, before I go to the DLC, I think I'm going to prepare with one last thing. Although, Frampt isn't too happy with me. Although it kind of begs the question, how does he know I talked to Kath? Now, a lot of people point to that and say, see, Frampt and Kath are not friends. You know, if you talk to Kath, Frampt gets pissed. If you talk to Frampt, you never see Kath. I think it's a little more complicated than that, because one thing I always thought was weird is we can kind of infer that Frampt and Gwyndolin are basically working together, because they're both playing two important roles in making sure the Chosen Undead replaces Gwyn. Gwyndolin creates the illusions in Anor Londo, which lead you on. He's basically the one that gives up the Lord Vessel, which is obviously very important. Frampt is the one that waits for you to get the Lord Vessel, then after you get it, instructs you on what to do. They're basically playing two very important roles to make sure you basically do what they want you to do. But here's the important part. If you kill Gwyndolin, Frampt doesn't seem to care. Now you might think, well, he only really, his ultimate goal is that you replace Gwyn, so maybe killing Gwyndolin, while kind of douchey, not that big a deal. Well, I don't really buy that either, because one of the first things Frampt tells us is that he was one of Gwyn's, friends. He was one of Gwyn's trusted, advisors, basically. And I believe that, because if that was a lie, it'd be very easy to find out that was a lie. I mean, we'd have other characters that we could get that information out of. Like, hell, you can meet Gwyndolin. You can basically, become one of Gwyndolin's underlings. If that was a lie, it wouldn't really hold up. There'd be ways to figure that out if that wasn't true. I don't think Frampt would risk you discovering, figuring out that he was, not really being honest with you that easily. So I think we can kind of infer that that is true. But I think we can also assume that he was Gwyn's friend in the same way he's your friend, and that he's only pretending really to be your friend to get what he wants out of you. And that since Gwyn was kind of like basically the god of the world in a way, that he was controlling things, at least for a time until everything went to shit, that he was only buddying up with Gwyn because it was in his best interest. In the same way, Frampt is only buddying up with Gwyndolin because it's in his best interest. He's only on Gwyndolin's side until he gets what he wants, which is the spread of the abyss. So now we are fighting Pinwheel, the hardest boss in the game. Actually, I don't think people kind of overstate how easy he is. Yeah, if you fight him right now in the game, he's really easy, but I don't think he's intended really to be fought right now. I think for new players, it's kind of a good idea to fight him early to get the Rite of Kindling in one of the masks. They make the game a lot easier. Well, that's going to be the end of part... what part are we at? 7?